Hello, welcome to Tangled Threads. If you enjoy this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to our channel. Let's go. I'm John, a middle-aged man living in a picturesque rural neighborhood surrounded by rolling hills, farmland, and quaint, well-kept houses. I shared my life with Elaine, my wife of 15 years. Our house, a large old farmhouse, needed constant maintenance, and lately we had been troubled by the deteriorating state of our roof. It was inevitable. We needed a new one. One sunny afternoon, while I was tending to the rose bushes lining our white picket fence, a car pulled up. The bright logo on the side said Slate and Shine Roofs, and out stepped a man, businesslike but with a confident charm. His name was Stanley, the roof salesman. "We've noticed your roof could use some love," Stanley said, his hand extended, the other gesturing towards our sad-looking roof. He was right, so we invited him in to discuss it further. After some negotiation, and an offer we couldn't resist, we signed a hefty contract for a new roof. Stanley beamed, congratulating us on our investment, his eyes twinkling with more than just the joy of a good sale. Elaine seemed particularly enamored by his charisma, but I brushed it off as innocent friendliness. A few days later, Stanley returned to finalize the deal. Our first meeting with Stanley took place at our old oak table, bathed in afternoon sunlight. He had brought along numerous brochures and samples, his fingers dancing across the images of beautiful homes adorned with shiny new roofs. With a persuasive charm, he had described each type, from asphalt shingles to metal tiles, highlighting the advantages of each. Elaine had been hanging on his every word, her eyes shining with curiosity. I, on the other hand, focused on the practical aspects, drawn to the longevity and durability of certain options. Stanley managed to sell us on a costly yet seemingly worthwhile slate roof. As we signed the contract, he had leaned back, running his hand through his hair with a satisfied sigh. His eyes sparkled with accomplishment, but there was a lingering look that settled on Elaine that had caused an uneasy churn in my stomach. The second appointment had been a follow-up. As I had walked inside to grab a drink, I glanced out the kitchen window to see Stanley and Elaine sitting together. They were huddled over a blueprint of the house, his finger tracing lines across the paper, Elaine nodding along, her laugh tinkling in the air whenever Stanley made a joke. His hand occasionally rested on hers, a touch too long to be just friendly. It felt strange, their closeness, their secretive smiles. That's when I decided I needed to keep a closer eye on them. Their third appointment is where my worst fears were confirmed. I had announced a sudden trip to the store, my heart pounding in my chest as I watched Stanley's car pull up from my concealed spot down the street. With a nervous breath, I crept back towards the house, staying in the shadows. The sight that greeted me was worse than I'd feared. Elaine and Stanley weren't just getting along well, they were in each other's arms, sharing a passionate kiss in my living room. The room where we had shared so many intimate moments was now tainted with their deceit. It was this betrayal that propelled me into action. First snapping a picture, then confronting them in my own home. My shouts echoed through the house, my rage evident in every syllable. Stanley's face had drained of color as he emerged from the guest room, his eyes pleading for understanding. But I was beyond the point of forgiving. I had a different sort of gift in mind for him. "John, mate, I can explain. We didn't mean—" "Shut up, Stanley," I barked, cutting him off. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to calm down. "Actually, I've got something for you." I motioned for him to follow me outside. Stanley's eyes widened as he saw the new sign planted in our front yard. "Heavenly Roofs, upcoming project." "See that, Stanley? We found a better deal, and your services are no longer needed," I said. The ice in my voice matched only by the cold glare I shot him. He spluttered an apology, the confident facade crumbling, and he retreated to his car, defeated. The moment Stanley's car disappeared down the road, I turned to Elaine, who was standing in the hallway, her eyes wide and frightened. The silence hung heavy between us. The woman I had loved for 15 years was now a stranger. "Elaine," I began, my voice hollow, "I think it's best if you leave." She looked at me, her eyes pleading. "John, I don't want to hear it," I interrupted, raising a hand. My heart was heavy, but my mind was made up. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. There was no dramatic pleading or bargaining, just a silent acceptance of the consequences of her actions. Elaine went upstairs to pack a few essentials. I watched as she struggled to maintain her composure, her hands shaking as she pulled out a suitcase. Her sniffles punctuated the silence of our house, a house that was no longer a home. She returned with a small suitcase in tow, avoiding my gaze. As she moved past me, she briefly touched my arm, an attempt at comfort that only ignited my anger. I watched her from the porch as she loaded her suitcase into her car. She took one last look at our house, her eyes filled with regret before climbing in. As she pulled out of the driveway, the finality of the situation hit me. This was it, the end of a chapter. Our once peaceful home was now filled with bitter memories. But at least I had taken the first step toward cleansing it. There was a long road ahead, but at least I was moving forward, one painful step at a time, of course. After Elaine had left, I turned to my computer, my mind buzzing with the recent events. My hands were shaking slightly as I opened up a new email, the screen's harsh light illuminating the darkened room. I addressed it to the customer service department at Slate and Shine Roofs, as their website suggested for complaints. I started with a formal greeting, laying out the situation in stark black and white. I detailed how Stanley, their employee, had taken advantage of his professional position and engaged in an inappropriate relationship with my wife, right under my roof. My words were precise, my anger evident yet controlled. I then attached the incriminating picture, proof of their betrayal. My finger hovered over the send button for a moment, an odd mix of satisfaction and sorrow filling me. With a deep breath, I clicked it. Almost immediately, I received an automated response acknowledging receipt of my email. I sighed, leaning back in the chair, my heart heavy yet oddly light. The first step towards justice had been taken. The next morning, I woke up to an email notification. It was a reply from Slate and Shine Roofs. Their words were apologetic, promising a thorough investigation into the matter. A few hours later, I received another email. The company confirmed Stanley's immediate termination, emphasizing their commitment to maintaining trust and professionalism. They apologized for the distress caused and offered a full refund on our contract. Although the refund and Stanley's firing didn't mend my broken heart, they provided a sense of closure. I had exposed his dishonesty, ensuring that he couldn't use his position to exploit someone else's trust. There was a certain bittersweet satisfaction in that knowledge. My gift had indeed made a lasting impact. "Elaine," I began when I went back inside. She was sitting on the couch, a picture of guilt and fear. "I think it's best if you leave." And so she did, leaving behind a shattered marriage and a man rediscovering his worth. As for Stanley, I hope he learned that some sales just aren't worth the cost. Well, if there's one thing John has learned from this, it's that not all salesmen just sell products. Some, like Stanley, specialize in selling out trust and ruining marriages. What do you think? Let us know in the comments section below. When you subscribe, be sure to click the notification bell. Click here for more Tangled threads.